Lawrence Evans stood naked in the sterile examination room, acutely aware that the contents of his pants could determine the fate of humanity. Across from him, Ilara, the Hirogen xenobiologist, stared with her multifaceted eyes, medical instruments poised and ready. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a scalpel. Just hours earlier, the interstellar diplomatic vessel Concordia had docked at Xerax Prime, the Hirogen homeworld. Lawrence, a 32-year-old cultural liaison officer and xenobiology expert, never imagined he'd be in this position when he joined the human delegation. The mission was clear: secure an alliance with the Hirogen to obtain their advanced defensive technology. Earth needed it desperately to combat the looming threat of the aggressive Zorn Empire. The urgent message from Admiral Zhao still echoed in Lawrence's mind. The Hirogen had made an unexpected request: a private medical examination of a human male to verify physiological compatibility. It was a make-or-break moment for the proposed alliance, and Lawrence had been chosen for this sensitive task. As he was escorted through the gleaming spires of Cathora, the Hirogen capital city, Lawrence's mind raced. The Hirogen were a hermaphroditic species with internal reproductive organs. They had never encountered a species with external genitalia before. The potential for cultural misunderstanding was enormous, and a diplomatic incident could spell disaster for Earth's defense plans. Now, face to face with Ilara, Lawrence took a deep breath. The 28-year-old Hirogen stood tall and slender, her iridescent blue skin shimmering under the examination room's harsh lights. Her large compound eyes seemed to take in every detail of Lawrence's anatomy. "I'm ready to proceed with the examination," Ilara said, her voice a melodious trill. "Please remove your lower garments." Lawrence's hands moved to his waistband, hesitating for a moment. The weight of Earth's future pressed down on him. One wrong move, one misinterpreted gesture, and years of careful diplomacy could crumble. He steeled himself and began to lower his pants. Ilara's eyes widened, her antenna twitching with curiosity. Lawrence knew that what she was about to see could either cement humanity's place among the stars or condemn them to isolation in the face of the Zorn threat. As the fabric fell away, Ilara let out a gasp of surprise. Her multifaceted eyes seemed to grow even larger, focusing intently on what she had just discovered. Lawrence held his breath, watching her reaction carefully. The future of Earth's defense, the alliance with the Hirogen, and the safety of billions back home all hung in the balance of this intimate moment. Ilara's delicate, six-fingered hand reached for an instrument on the nearby tray. Lawrence tensed, unsure of what was to come. The examination was about to begin, and with it, the most crucial test of interspecies diplomacy in human history. Ilara's instrument hovered inches from Lawrence's exposed genitals. Her multifaceted eyes widened, compound lenses dilating as she took in the unfamiliar anatomy before her. Lawrence held his breath, acutely aware of the weight of this moment. "Fascinating," Ilara breathed, her melodious voice tinged with awe. "I've never encountered external reproductive organs before. May I—" Lawrence nodded, steeling himself as Ilara's six-fingered hand approached. Her touch was clinical, but the alien sensation sent a shiver through him. He focused on maintaining his composure, knowing that the slightest misstep could jeopardize everything. "The structure is quite remarkable," Ilara mused, her antennae twitching with curiosity. She reached for another instrument, a device that emitted a soft blue glow. "This will allow me to examine your internal structures without invasive measures." As the examination progressed, Lawrence noticed Ilara's initial shock giving way to genuine scientific fascination. She asked questions about human reproduction, her voice filled with eager curiosity. Lawrence answered as best he could, drawing on his xenobiology training to provide clear, concise explanations. Suddenly, a piercing alarm shattered the clinical quiet of the examination room. Red lights flashed and a computerized voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Alert! Zorn vessel detected in Hirogen space. All personnel initiate security protocols." Lawrence and Ilara exchanged alarmed glances as the doors to the examination room sealed with a hiss. Trapped together, they rushed to the room's communication panel. "This is xenobiologist Ilara," she called out, her voice tense. "What's happening?" A gruff Hirogen voice responded, "A Zorn scout ship has breached our outer defenses. All non-essential personnel are to remain in secure locations until the threat is neutralized." Lawrence's military training kicked in. "Can we access any tactical data from here?" Ilara nodded, her fingers flying over the control panel. The medical bay's screens flickered to life, displaying security feeds and tactical readouts. Lawrence leaned in, his nakedness forgotten as he analyzed the data. "Look," he pointed, tracing the Zorn ship's trajectory. "They're using the magnetic field of your third moon to mask their approach. If your defense grid recalibrates to account for the interference, you could—" Ilara's eyes widened. "You're right." She quickly relayed the information to the Hirogen military command. Within moments, the tactical display showed Hirogen ships adjusting their positions. As hours passed, Lawrence and Ilara worked side by side, monitoring the unfolding battle. Lawrence's strategic insights proved invaluable, helping the Hirogen anticipate and counter Zorn maneuvers. During a lull in the action, Ilara turned to Lawrence. "I must admit I'm impressed. Your adaptability and quick thinking are unexpected." Lawrence smiled. "Humans have a long history of adapting to new situations. It's one of our greatest strengths." "Tell me more," Ilara said, her antennae twitching with interest. As they monitored the ongoing conflict, Lawrence shared stories of human ingenuity and resilience. He spoke of the first moon landing, of medical breakthroughs, and of the countless times humanity had faced extinction only to emerge stronger. In turn, Ilara opened up about Hirogen culture. She revealed her position on the scientific council and the influence she wielded in shaping Hirogen policy. "This alliance with humans," she admitted. "I was skeptical at first, but now—" Her words were cut off by a sudden explosion on the tactical display. One of the Hirogen outposts had taken a direct hit from the Zorn ship. "No!" Ilara cried out, her composure cracking for the first time. Lawrence placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, surprised at how natural the gesture felt. "Look," he said, pointing to the display. "Your ships are flanking the Zorn. They've got them trapped." Sure enough, the Hirogen vessels closed in, their superior firepower overwhelming the Zorn scout ship. Within minutes, the threat was neutralized. As the all-clear signal sounded and the lockdown lifted, Lawrence and Ilara shared a moment of relief. The door slid open, revealing a concerned Admiral Zhao. "Lawrence," the Admiral began, "I hope the interruption hasn't—" Ilara stepped forward, cutting him off. "Admiral, I've come to a decision." Her multifaceted eyes gleamed with commitment. "I will recommend that we proceed with the alliance." Zhao's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "But the examination—" "Was unnecessary," Ilara finished. "My time with Lawrence has provided far more valuable insights than any medical test could have. His strategic abilities, his adaptability, his willingness to share knowledge, these are the qualities that will make humans valuable allies." Lawrence felt a surge of pride, tempered by the surreal awareness that he was still completely naked. Ilara turned to him, her expression softer than before. "Lawrence, I'd like to request that you be assigned as our primary liaison for future negotiations. Your unique perspective will be invaluable as we move forward." As Lawrence nodded his agreement, he realized that this unexpected turn of events had not only averted a diplomatic crisis, but had opened the door to a deeper understanding between their species. The implications for both his personal future and the fate of the human-Hirogen alliance were enormous. Admiral Zhao cleared his throat. "Well, this is certainly a positive development. Lawrence, why don't you get dressed, and we can discuss the next steps?" As Lawrence reached for his discarded clothing, he caught Ilara's eye. The xenobiologist gave him a look that seemed to convey both scientific curiosity and something more personal. Lawrence knew that whatever came next, the relationship between humans and Hirogen would be unlike anything either species had experienced before. As Lawrence finished dressing, Admiral Zhao's communicator chirped. He stepped aside to take the call, leaving Lawrence and Ilara in a moment of charged silence. "It seems our adventure has only just begun," Lawrence said, adjusting his collar. Ilara's antennae twitched in agreement. "Indeed. I look forward to learning more about your species, Lawrence. Perhaps we could continue our cultural exchange over a meal?" Before Lawrence could respond, Admiral Zhao returned, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Lawrence, your presence is required aboard the Concordia immediately. The Hirogen High Council has made an interesting request." Lawrence nodded, turning to Alara. "Duty calls. We'll have to postpone that meal." As they made their way through the gleaming corridors of Cathora, Lawrence couldn't help but marvel at the city's architecture. Crystalline spires stretched towards the alien sky, their surfaces refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Aboard the Concordia, Lawrence found himself in a high-security briefing room. Admiral Zhao wasted no time getting to the point. "The Hirogen want to establish a cultural exchange program," Zhao explained, his voice tinged with cautious optimism. "They're requesting a small team of human specialists to work alongside Hirogen counterparts, and they want you to lead it, Lawrence." Lawrence's mind raced with the implications. "This could be our chance to solidify the alliance," he said, leaning forward. "What kind of team are we looking at?" Admiral Zhao activated a holographic display showing profiles of potential candidates. "We need a diverse group of experts. Your job is to select the team and oversee the program." Over the next few days, Lawrence immersed himself in personnel files and mission parameters. He carefully selected his team: Dr. Marcus Chen, a brilliant xenobiologist with a knack for thinking outside the box; Captain Jared Hawkins, a seasoned military strategist with multiple commendations; Dr. Emily Sato, a linguist whose work on alien communication had revolutionized the field; Professor Ahmed Khan, an anthropologist known for his adaptive cultural integration techniques; and Lieutenant Commander Darius Jackson, an engineer with a reputation for innovative solutions to complex problems. The team underwent intensive briefings on Hirogen customs and protocols. Lawrence watched as his chosen specialists absorbed information on everything from Hirogen social hierarchies to proper antenna etiquette. "Remember," Lawrence emphasized during their final briefing, "we're not just here to gather information. We're here to build trust and understanding. Every interaction is an opportunity to strengthen our alliance." As the exchange program began, Lawrence found himself working closely with Alara once again. They were assigned to develop a universal translation matrix, a project that would facilitate seamless communication between humans and Hirogen. "The challenge," Alara explained as they pored over linguistic data, "is accounting for the nuances of Hirogen pheromonal communication. Your species relies so heavily on vocal and visual cues." Lawrence nodded, fascinated by the complexity of Hirogen language. "Perhaps we could incorporate some kind of olfactory sensor into the matrix, something that could detect and interpret pheromonal signals?" Their work was interrupted by a commotion outside. Lawrence and Alara rushed to the window to see a group of Hirogen protesters gathered in the plaza below. At their head stood Zorath, an imposing figure with deep violet skin and fierce, angular features. "Humans are a biological abomination," Zorath's voice boomed through amplifiers. "Their external organs are a threat to our way of life." Lawrence felt a sinking in his stomach. He turned to Alara, who looked equally concerned. "I should address them," he said, moving toward the door. Alara grabbed his arm, her touch sending an unexpected jolt through him. "Are you sure that's wise? Zorath is a member of our military council. His words carry weight." Lawrence met her gaze, steadfast. "All the more reason to engage directly. We can't let misinformation spread." With Alara by his side, Lawrence made his way to the plaza. As he approached the crowd, he could feel the tension in the air, thick and palpable. Zorath's eyes narrowed as Lawrence stepped forward. "Citizens of Cathora," Lawrence began, his voice clear and calm, "I understand your concerns. Change can be frightening, especially when it involves beings as different as we are. But I ask you to consider the possibilities that come with diversity." He went on to speak of the potential benefits of the alliance, of the strength that comes from combining different perspectives and abilities. As he spoke, he noticed a shift in the crowd. The angry murmurs began to subside, replaced by curious whispers and thoughtful expressions. Zorath, seeing his influence waning, attempted to interject, but Lawrence pressed on. He invited questions from the crowd, addressing each concern with patience and respect. By the time the impromptu forum concluded, many of the protesters had dispersed, their anger replaced by cautious curiosity. As Lawrence and Alara walked back to their lab, she turned to him with newfound admiration. "That was impressive," she said. "You have a gift for diplomacy." Lawrence smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest at her praise. "It's about finding common ground. We may look different, but at our core, we all want security and understanding." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Dr. Chen. "Lawrence, Alara, you need to see this immediately." The xenobiologist's excited voice crackled through the communicator. In the lab, Dr. Chen and his Hirogen counterpart Zelos were hunched over a holographic display of intertwined DNA strands. "We've made a breakthrough," Dr. Chen explained, his eyes shining with excitement. "There's a sequence in human DNA that could potentially enhance Hirogen resistance to the Vexthor virus." Alara gasped, her antennae quivering. "The Vexthor virus has plagued our people for generations. If this is true, it could change everything," Lawrence finished, realizing the enormous implications of this discovery. As word of the breakthrough spread, Lawrence noticed a shift in the atmosphere of Cathora. The protests dwindled, replaced by a cautious optimism. Even Zorath's rhetoric became less inflammatory, though he continued to voice concerns about human influence. In the midst of these developments, Lawrence found himself spending more time with Alara outside of their official duties. They explored Cathora together, with Alara introducing him to Hirogen art forms and philosophical concepts. One evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the city, Alara turned to Lawrence. "Your species continues to surprise me," she said softly. "I never expected to find such compatibility." Lawrence felt a flutter in his chest, acutely aware of their proximity. Before he could respond, an alarm blared through the city. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Alert! Security breach detected. Possible Zorn infiltrator in the capital. All personnel initiate lockdown protocols." Lawrence and Alara exchanged alarmed glances. As they rushed to the command center, Lawrence knew that the true test of the Human-Hirogen Alliance was about to begin. Lawrence's mind raced as he and Alara sprinted toward the command center. The blaring alarms and flashing red lights created an atmosphere of urgency that permeated the entire city. As they burst through the doors of the command center, they were met with a scene of controlled chaos. Hirogen operators moved swiftly between holographic displays, their antennae twitching with tension. Admiral Zhao stood at the center of the room, his face grim as he studied a large tactical projection. "Lawrence, Alara," Zhao acknowledged them with a nod. "We have a situation. Our sensors have detected a Zorn infiltrator within the city limits. We believe they may be after the data on the human-Hirogen genetic compatibility." Lawrence's eyes widened. That information could be devastating in the wrong hands. "What's our plan of action?" Before Zhao could respond, a familiar voice cut through the din. "Perhaps if the humans hadn't been allowed to roam freely, we wouldn't be in this predicament." Lawrence turned to see Zorath striding into the command center, his violet skin seeming to darken with anger. The Hirogen military counselor's presence added an extra layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. "Counselor Zorath, now is not the time for accusations. We need to focus on neutralizing the threat." Zorath's antennae twitched in irritation, but he didn't argue further. Admiral Zhao seized the moment to outline their strategy. "We've initiated a citywide lockdown. Security teams are conducting a sector-by-sector search. Lawrence, I want you and your team to assist in the operation. Your unique perspectives might help us anticipate the infiltrators' moves." Lawrence nodded, already formulating a plan. "Understood, Admiral. I'll gather my team immediately." As Lawrence left to brief his team, he couldn't shake the feeling that this crisis was more than just a security breach. It was a test of the fledgling Human-Hirogen Alliance and of his own leadership. Within minutes, Lawrence had assembled his team in a nearby conference room. Dr. Chen, Captain Hawkins, Dr. Sato, Professor Khan, and Lieutenant Commander Jackson listened intently as he outlined the situation. "This is our chance to prove the value of human-Hirogen cooperation," Lawrence explained. "We need to approach this from angles the Hirogen might not consider." Dr. Chen spoke up first. The Zorn are after our genetic research. They might try to access our lab facilities. I can work with Zelos to secure our data and set up traps in the research wing. Captain Hawkins nodded in agreement. Good thinking. I'll coordinate with the Hirogen security teams. Our tactical approaches might be different enough to catch the infiltrator off guard. I can assist with communications, Dr. Sato offered. If we can intercept any Zorn transmissions, I might be able to decipher their plans. Professor Khan stroked his beard thoughtfully. I'll review the city's layout with an anthropological eye. The Zorn might use cultural blind spots to their advantage. And I'll work on modifying our sensors, Lieutenant Commander Jackson added. If we can adjust them to detect Zorn biosignatures, we might be able to pinpoint their location. Lawrence felt a surge of pride in his team's quick thinking. Excellent ideas, all of you. Let's move out and show the Hirogen what we can do. As the team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Lawrence returned to the command center. He found Alara engaged in a heated discussion with Zorath. Cannot simply lock down every research facility, Alara was saying, her antennae quivering with frustration. It would cripple our operations. Zorath's eyes narrowed. And what would you suggest? Allow the Zorn free access to our most sensitive data? Lawrence stepped in, his voice calm but firm. If I may, I think we have a solution that addresses both concerns. He quickly outlined his team's plan, emphasizing how it combined Hirogen's strengths with human ingenuity. As he spoke, he noticed a shift in Zorath's expression, from outright hostility to grudging interest. Your plan has merit, Zorath admitted reluctantly. But how can we be sure your team is up to the task? By giving them a chance to prove themselves, Alara interjected, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with perseverance. Lawrence, I'd like to work with Dr. Chen and Zelos in securing the research data. My expertise in Hirogen biology could be valuable. Lawrence nodded, feeling a mix of professional admiration and personal warmth towards Alara. Agreed. Let's put this plan into action. Over the next few hours, Cathora became a hive of coordinated activity. Human and Hirogen teams worked side by side, their efforts guided by the unique insights of Lawrence's specialists. Dr. Chen and Alara set up a series of ingenious traps in the research wing, using a combination of Hirogen technology and human creativity. Captain Hawkins introduced the Hirogen security teams to human-style urban warfare tactics, creating a more unpredictable search pattern. Dr. Sato's linguistic skills proved invaluable when she detected and decrypted a faint Zorn transmission, providing crucial intelligence on the infiltrator's movements. Professor Khan's cultural insights helped identify several overlooked hiding spots that the Zorn might exploit. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Jackson worked tirelessly with Hirogen engineers to modify the city's sensor array. His unorthodox approach initially puzzled his Hirogen counterparts, but they soon came to appreciate his innovative thinking. As the search intensified, Lawrence found himself in the heart of the action. He moved between teams, coordinating efforts and providing strategic input. The Hirogen operators, initially skeptical of human involvement, began to show signs of respect for the effectiveness of the joint operation. Even Zorath, who had been watching the proceedings with a critical eye, seemed impressed by the seamless integration of human and Hirogen efforts. Perhaps, he muttered to himself, there is more to these humans than I first thought. The breakthrough came late in the evening. Jackson's modified sensors picked up a faint Zorn biosignature in an abandoned industrial sector. Lawrence and Alara led a joint human Hirogen team to the location, their hearts racing with anticipation. As they approached the dilapidated building where the signal originated, Lawrence turned to Alara. Whatever happens in there, he said softly, I want you to know that working with you has been an honor. Alara's antennae twitched in what Lawrence had come to recognize as a gesture of affection. The honor has been mine, Lawrence. Now, let's catch ourselves a Zorn. They entered the building, their teams moving in perfect synchronization. Human adaptability complemented Hirogen's strength as they swept through the shadows, closing in on their target. Suddenly, a figure burst from behind a rusted piece of machinery. The Zorn infiltrator, realizing it was cornered, lashed out with unexpected ferocity. In the chaos that followed, Lawrence saw a chance to end the confrontation quickly. He locked eyes with Ilara, a silent understanding passing between them. With a nod, they moved in tandem, using a combination of human wrestling techniques and hydrogen pressure point manipulation to subdue the infiltrator. As the Zorn was secured and the stolen data recovered, a cheer went up from the combined human hydrogen force. Lawrence felt a sense of triumph, not just in capturing the infiltrator, but in the successful collaboration between their species. Back at the command center, Admiral Zhao congratulated the team on their success. "This operation has demonstrated the true potential of our alliance," he said, his voice filled with pride. Even Zorath, standing at the back of the room, gave a grudging nod of approval. "Your methods are unconventional," he admitted to Lawrence, "but effective. Perhaps there is merit in this partnership after all." As the debriefing concluded, Lawrence felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Ilara, her eyes shining with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Lawrence," she began, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "there's something I need to discuss with you. Privately." Before Lawrence could respond, a loud alarm cut through the air. Admiral Zhao's face paled as he looked at the main display. "We have multiple Zorn ships dropping out of hyperspace," he announced, his voice grave. "This wasn't just an infiltration. It's a full-scale invasion." Lawrence and Ilara shared a look of dedication. Whatever Ilara had wanted to say would have to wait. The true test of the human-Hirogen alliance was about to begin, and the fate of both their species hung in the balance. Balance. The command center erupted into frantic activity as the Zorn battle fleet approached Zarax Prime. Lawrence's mind raced, processing the sudden shift from infiltrator hunt to full-scale invasion. Admiral Zhao's voice cut through the chaos. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill." Lawrence turned to his team. "You heard the Admiral. Let's show them what humans and Hirogen can do together." As they moved to their assigned positions, Lawrence caught Ilara's eye. Whatever she had wanted to discuss would have to wait, but the look they shared spoke volumes. They were in this together, now more than ever. The Hirogen Defense Headquarters buzzed with controlled urgency as Lawrence and his human team integrated seamlessly into the operations. Captain Hawkins joined Lawrence at a holographic display, analyzing the approaching Zorn fleet's formation. "Look at this," Hawkins pointed to a cluster of ships on the projection. "Their formation is tighter than we've seen before. They're learning." Ilara approached, her antennae twitching with concentration. "Indeed, but perhaps we can use that against them." For the next hour, Lawrence, Hawkins, and Ilara worked alongside the Hirogen strategists, combining their knowledge to devise a defense strategy. The result was a plan that married Hirogen technology with human tactical innovation. "We'll use your cloaking technology," Lawrence explained to the gathered Hirogen officers, "but in a way the Zorn won't expect." He outlined the strategy, hiding small, agile Hirogen ships among Zarax Prime's moons and asteroids, while larger vessels formed a visible front line. It was a multi-layered defense that leveraged the strengths of both species. As the plan was set into motion, Lawrence felt a surge of pride watching his team in action. Dr. Chen huddled with his Hirogen counterpart, poring over Zorn ship schematics. Lieutenant Commander Jackson worked feverishly with Hirogen engineers, his hands flying over alien controls as he helped boost their weapon systems. The tension in the command center reached a fever pitch as the Zorn fleet entered the system. Lawrence watched the holographic display, his heart pounding as the first wave of Hirogen ships engaged the Zorn in a frontal assault. "Hold steady," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "Wait for it." The Zorn took the bait, committing fully to the attack on the outnumbered Hirogen ships. Just as the situation seemed dire, Lawrence gave the signal. "Now!" Across the battlefield, cloaked Hirogen ships shimmered into view, catching the Zorn in a devastating crossfire. The command center erupted in cheers as the first Zorn ships fell to the surprise attack. But the celebration was short-lived. The sheer size of the Zorn fleet began to tell, and Lawrence watched with growing concern as several Hirogen outposts winked out on the tactical display. "The main planetary shield is down to 60% power," a Hirogen operator reported, his voice tense. Lawrence's mind raced, searching for a solution. His eyes fell on a display showing the Concordia in orbit around Zarax Prime, and an idea formed. "Admiral Zhao," he called, opening a channel to the human ship. "I have a plan, but it's risky." He quickly outlined his proposal to use the Concordia as bait, drawing off a portion of the Zorn fleet. There was a moment of silence as Zhao considered the plan. "It's bold, Lawrence," the Admiral finally replied, "and it just might work. We'll do it." The next few minutes were a flurry of activity as Lawrence coordinated with both human and Hirogen forces to set the trap. He watched with nervous excitement as the Concordia broke orbit, broadcasting a false distress signal. "Come on," he whispered, eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Take the bait." To his relief, a significant portion of the Zorn fleet peeled away from the main assault, pursuing the Concordia into the outer system. With the Zorn forces divided, the tide of battle began to turn. Alara led a squadron of advanced Hirogen battleships in a daring attack on the Zorn flagship, their movements a deadly dance choreographed by the combined tactical insights of both species. Meanwhile, Lawrence coordinated with Admiral Zhao, guiding the Concordia and its Zorn pursuers into the waiting arms of hidden Hirogen reinforcements. The resulting ambush was a testament to the effectiveness of their joint strategy. As the battle reached its crescendo, Lawrence was surprised to see Zorath enter the command center. The Hirogen counselor's face was grim but determined. "Your plan is effective," Zorath admitted, his words clearly difficult for him. "I'm committing my forces to the main defense." Lawrence nodded, a newfound respect forming between them. "Thank you, Counselor. Together, we can win this." The addition of Zorath's forces proved to be the tipping point. The Zorn fleet, caught between the hammer of the main Hirogen defense and the anvil of the ambush in the outer system, began to falter. But the battle was a long way to go. As Lawrence and Alara coordinated the mop-up operations, an alarming alert sounded. "The Zorn flagship is making a run at the city," a Hirogen operator shouted. Lawrence's mind whirled, formulating a plan on the spot. "The Concordia," he said, turning to Alara. "If we can use its unique energy signature to disrupt their guidance systems..." Alara nodded, already moving to implement the plan. "I'll coordinate with Admiral Zhao." As they worked feverishly to position their forces for this final, crucial engagement, Lawrence and Alara found a moment amidst the chaos. Their eyes met across the command center, a wordless exchange that spoke of trust, respect, and something deeper that neither had yet dared to name. The fate of both their peoples hung in the balance as they prepared to face the Zorn flagship's final assault. But in that moment, as human and Hirogen stood united against a common threat, Lawrence felt a surge of hope. Whatever the outcome, this battle had forged a bond between their species that would not easily be broken. With a shared nod of drive, Lawrence and Alara turned back to their stations, ready to face whatever came next. The Zorn flagship loomed large on the command center's main display, its imposing silhouette a stark reminder of the imminent threat. Lawrence's eyes darted between tactical readouts as he coordinated the combined human-Hirogen defense. "Concordia, are you in position?" Lawrence's voice was steady despite the tension coursing through him. Admiral Zhao's face appeared on a nearby screen. "Affirmative. Ready to initiate the disruptor pulse on your mark." Lawrence nodded, then turned to Alara. "Status of our defensive formation?" Alara's antennae twitched as she processed the information. "Hirogen vessels are in place. All systems nominal." "Execute," Lawrence commanded. The Concordia moved into position, its sleek form dwarfed by the Zorn flagship. As it prepared to emit the disruptor pulse, alarms blared across the command center. "Critical malfunction in Concordia's deflector array," a human technician shouted. Lawrence's mind raced. The Concordia was exposed, vulnerable to the Zorn's devastating weapons. He locked eyes with Alara, a plan forming between them without a word spoken. "All Hirogen vessels," Lawrence called out, his voice carrying across the command center. "Form a protective barrier around the Concordia. Maintain position until the pulse is activated." Hirogen ships swarmed around the human vessel, their hulls gleaming as they created a living shield. The Zorn flagship unleashed a barrage of energy beams, each impact sending shudders through the Hirogen formation. For a moment, it seemed the strategy would hold. Then a particularly powerful blast broke through the defensive line. Lawrence watched in horror as the beam struck the Concordia's engineering section. "Admiral Zhao, report!" Lawrence demanded, his heart pounding. Zhao's face reappeared, now bathed in the red glow of emergency lighting. "Engineering's taken heavy damage. We're losing power, but we can still fire the pulse. We just need a few more seconds." Lawrence gripped the edge of the tactical display, his squeezing hard. "Hold on, Admiral. You'll get those seconds." The next moments stretched into an eternity. Lawrence coordinated with Alara, adjusting the hydrogen formation to compensate for the Concordia's weakened state. Finally, a brilliant pulse of energy erupted from the human ship, engulfing the Zorn flagship. The effect was immediate and devastating. The massive Zorn vessel veered wildly off course, its guidance systems scrambled. It collided with several smaller ships in its fleet, the impacts sending shockwaves through space. "Now's our chance," Alara said, her voice filled with fierce dedication. "I'll lead the attack squadrons. We'll disable as many as we can while they're disorganized." Lawrence nodded, already turning his attention to the ground-based defenses. "I'll coordinate from here. Target any ships trying to retreat. We can't let them regroup." As Alara's squadron launched into the fray, Lawrence directed a symphony of destruction. Hydrogen energy weapons and human railguns worked in concert, picking off Zorn stragglers and crippling their larger vessels. Within hours, the once mighty invasion force was reduced to floating debris and disabled hulks. Victory achieved, Lawrence's focus immediately shifted to the Concordia. "Admiral Zhao, what's your status?" The response came not from Zhao, but from his first officer. "The Admiral's been injured. We've lost main power and life support is failing. We need immediate evacuation." "Understood," Lawrence replied, his voice grim. He turned to the Hirogen officers nearby. "I need volunteers for a rescue operation. We have to get those people off the Concordia now." To his surprise and gratification, nearly every Hirogen in the command center stepped forward. Lawrence quickly organized the rescue teams, assigning human and Hirogen personnel to work together. As the rescue ships approached the Concordia, Lawrence received a private communication from Admiral Zhao. The man's face was pale, a streak of blood running down his temple. "Lawrence," Zhao said, his voice weak but resolute, "the ship can't be saved. Too much sensitive data on board. I'm initiating the self-destruct sequence as soon as the last crew member is off." Lawrence nodded, understanding the necessity but feeling the weight of the decision. "Understood, Admiral. We'll get your people out." The rescue operation was a testament to the newfound cooperation between humans and Hirogen. Hirogen ships provided cover while human shuttles docked with the Concordia. Mixed teams moved through the damaged vessel, helping injured crew members and salvaging critical technology. As the last shuttle departed, Lawrence watched the Concordia's final moments. The ship that had brought them to this distant world, the symbol of humanity's reach into the stars, disappeared in a silent flash of light. With the immediate crisis over, the reality of their situation set in. Lawrence gathered his team, their faces a mix of exhaustion and concern. "The Concordia was our ride home," he said, addressing the elephant in the room. "We're going to be here for a while longer. This is going to require some delicate diplomacy." Before he could continue, Zorath approached, his imposing figure drawing all eyes. "Your actions today have altered my perspective," the Hirogen counselor admitted. "I will retract my opposition to our alliance. Your presence here will not be an imposition." Lawrence bowed his head slightly, recognizing the significance of Zorath's words. "Thank you, counselor. We appreciate your support." As Zorath departed, a Hirogen aide approached Lawrence. "The High Council requests your presence. They wish to discuss the battle's outcome and the future of our alliance." Lawrence exchanged glances with his team, noting their mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Tell the Council we'd be honored to attend." As they prepared to face this new diplomatic challenge, long-range sensors began blaring urgent warnings. Lawrence rushed to the nearest console, his heart sinking as he read the data. "Multiple Zorn fleets detected," he announced, his voice carrying across the now silent command center. "They're mobilizing in nearby sectors. This attack, it was just the beginning." The implications hung heavy in the air. The human-hydrogen alliance, barely formed, now faced a threat that could reshape the galaxy. As Lawrence contemplated their next move, a message from Earth flashed on his personal communicator. The situation had just become far more complex. Lawrence's eyes widened as he processed the implications of the data streaming across his screen. The Zorn threat was far greater than they had initially believed. He turned to face the assembled team, his expression grave. "We need to act fast," he said, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "I'm calling an emergency meeting with the HFY High Council." Within minutes, Lawrence found himself standing before the imposing figures of the HFY leadership. The council chamber hummed with tension as he laid out the dire situation facing the human colonies in the Orion Arm. "The Zorn Empire has launched a major offensive," Lawrence explained, gesturing to a holographic display of the affected sectors. "Our colonies are under siege, and without immediate intervention, we're looking at catastrophic losses." Murmurs rippled through the assembled counselors. Zorath, his earlier hostility replaced by unshakable focus, leaned forward. "What are you proposing, human?" Lawrence took a deep breath. "I'm asking for your help. The Zorn threat to humanity today could become a threat to the HFY tomorrow. We need to stand united." The council chamber erupted into heated debate. Lawrence watched as the HFY leaders argued amongst themselves, weighing the risks and benefits of intervention. Hours passed, each minute feeling like an eternity, as the fate of millions hung in the balance. Finally, the High Counselor raised a hand, silencing the room. "We have reached a decision," he announced. "The HFY will provide military assistance to the human colonies. Our most advanced warships will be dispatched immediately." Relief washed over Lawrence, but he knew this was only the beginning. The High Counselor continued, "Lawrence, you and your team will join the fleet as tactical advisors. Your knowledge of human colonies and Zorn tactics will be crucial to this mission's success." As preparations for departure began, Dr. Chen approached Lawrence, excitement evident in his eyes. "I've made a breakthrough," he said, presenting a datapad. "The deep space radiation we'll encounter on this mission, it accelerates the beneficial genetic exchanges between humans and HFY. This could enhance our natural strengths and compatibility." Lawrence nodded, filing away this information for future consideration. Right now, his focus was on the impending mission. The launch of the combined fleet was a sight to behold. Sleek HFY warships seamlessly integrated with human vessels, a physical representation of their newfound alliance. Lawrence found himself aboard the HFY flagship, co-commanding alongside Alara. As they entered the fringes of the Orion Arm, the fleet encountered a massive debris field. Twisted metal and shattered hulls stretched as far as the eye could see, the remains of a destroyed human colony. "By the gods," Alara whispered, her antennae drooping in shock. Lawrence's face hardened as he surveyed the devastation. "This is what we're up against," he said softly. "This is why we can't fail." Suddenly, an alert pinged on the sensor console. "Sir," a HFY officer called out, "we're detecting a weak distress signal from a nearby asteroid." Lawrence and Alara exchanged glances. "It could be survivors," Lawrence said. "We have to investigate." As they approached the asteroid, Zorn scout ships appeared on long-range scanners. The rescue operation suddenly became far more complicated. "We need to extract those survivors without alerting the Zorn to our presence," Alara stated, her tactical mind already formulating a plan. Lawrence nodded. "I'll lead a team to the surface. Keep the fleet hidden and be ready for immediate extraction." The descent to the asteroid's surface was tense, with Lawrence's team using every trick in the book to avoid detection. They found the survivors huddled in a makeshift shelter, their condition critical. Among them was Dr. Samantha Carter, a xenobiologist who had been studying Zorn technology. Despite her weakened state, her eyes lit up at the sight of the rescue team. "You have no idea how glad I am to see you," she said, her voice hoarse. "I have information about the Zorn, weaknesses we can exploit." As they prepared the survivors for evacuation, Zorn ships drew closer to their position. Lawrence's heart raced as he coordinated with Alara for extraction, knowing that detection could doom not just this mission, but the entire war effort. With seconds to spare, the rescue shuttles lifted off, cloaked hydrogen ships providing cover. As they docked with the flagship, Lawrence breathed a sigh of relief. They had succeeded, but the real challenges were just beginning. Dr. Carter's information proved invaluable as they continued their journey deeper into the Orion Arm. Her insights into Zorn technology and tactics gave them a fighting chance against the overwhelming forces they faced. Days later, as they approached a key Zorn supply base, Lawrence and Alara found themselves formulating a daring plan. If we combine hydrogen cloaking technology with human infiltration tactics, Lawrence proposed, pointing to a holographic display of the base, we could strike a major blow to their logistics. Alara nodded, her eyes gleaming with approval. It's risky, but it could buy valuable time for the colonies. The assault on the Zorn base became a crucible for human hydrogen cooperation. Captain Hawkins led a team of human special forces, their movements masked by hydrogen cloaking fields. Hydrogen ships provided distractions and cover fire, allowing the infiltration team to penetrate deep into the base. The operation was a resounding success, crippling Zorn supply lines and proving the effectiveness of their alliance. However, victory came at a cost. A fierce Zorn counterattack left several hydrogen ships badly damaged, forcing the fleet to retreat to a nearby uninhabited planet for repairs. As they set up a temporary base on the planet's surface, Lawrence couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected stop would test their alliance in ways they hadn't anticipated. The real challenges, he realized, were just beginning to unfold. As the temporary base bustled with activity, Lawrence couldn't shake the feeling that their unexpected stop on this uninhabited planet would prove pivotal. He stood with Alara overlooking the makeshift repair yards where human and hydrogen technicians worked tirelessly on damaged ships. "We can't stay here long," Alara said, her antennae twitching with nervous energy. "The Zorn will regroup soon." Lawrence nodded, his mind racing. "We need an edge, something they won't expect." As if on cue, Dr. Chen approached, his face alight with excitement. "Commander, I've made a discovery. The planet's radiation. It's unlike anything I've seen before. It could be the key to turning the tide against the Zorn." Lawrence listened intently as Chen outlined his findings. The planet's unique radiation signature could potentially cloak their entire fleet, rendering them invisible to Zorn sensors. It was a game-changing advantage, but one that came with significant risks. "The radiation exposure could have unknown effects on our crews," Chen cautioned. "Both human and hydrogen physiology could be impacted." Lawrence exchanged a glance with Alara. The potential benefits outweighed the risks. "Do it," he ordered, "but work on countermeasures. We need to protect our people as much as possible." Over the next several hours, the base transformed into a hive of scientific and engineering activity. Dr. Chen collaborated with hydrogen scientists, developing a radiation-resistant coating for the ship's hulls. As the coating was applied, Lawrence oversaw the final preparations for the impending battle. Captain Hawkins approached, his face grave. "Sir, we've detected a massive Zorn armada on long-range sensors. They'll be here within hours." Lawrence's teeth clenched. "Then we'd better be ready." As the fleet prepared to deploy, reports of unexpected physical changes among the crew began to surface. Lawrence witnessed a human engineer effortlessly lift a piece of equipment that would normally require a powered exosuit. Nearby, a hydrogen warrior's reflexes seemed to have sharpened beyond their already impressive levels. Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, the radiation is accelerating the genetic compatibility between humans and hydrogen. It's enhancing their natural abilities, but I can't predict how far these changes will go." "Understood," Lawrence replied. "We'll use every advantage we can get." With time running out, the human hydrogen fleet took up positions, hidden within the planet's radiation field. Lawrence stood on the bridge of the flagship, tension palpable in the air. Beside him, Alara coordinated final adjustments to their battle plan. "The Zorn Armada has entered the system," a sensor officer announced. Lawrence took a deep breath. "Execute Operation Shadow Strike." The next moments were a blur of action. The cloaked human hydrogen fleet burst from hiding, catching the Zorn completely off guard. Lawrence watched as Captain Hawkins led the strike team towards the Zorn flagship, their shuttle weaving through the chaos of battle. On the main view screen, Alara's tactical genius was on full display. Human and Hirogen ships moved in perfect synchronization, their crews pushing their enhanced abilities to the limit. Hirogen cruisers performed maneuvers that defied normal physics, while human gunners picked off Zorn weak points with uncanny precision. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "Captain Hawkins reports they've breached the Zorn flagship's outer defenses." Lawrence nodded grimly. "Tell them to push forward. We need that command center disabled." The space around them erupted in a dazzling display of weapons fire and explosions. Alara's voice rang out, coordinating the fleet's movements with preternatural calm. Lawrence marveled at her ability to process the rapidly changing battlefield conditions. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple Zorn vessels targeting our position," the tactical officer reported. "Evasive maneuvers," Lawrence ordered. The ship lurched as it narrowly avoided a barrage of Zorn energy weapons. As the battle raged on, reports of radiation sickness began to trickle in. Some crew members collapsed at their stations, while others displayed even further enhancements to their abilities. Dr. Chen's voice was strained as he updated Lawrence on the situation. "The radiation exposure is reaching critical levels for some crew members," Chen reported. "But others, Commander, I've never seen anything like this. Their DNA is rewriting itself in real time." Before Lawrence could respond, a massive explosion rocked the Zorn flagship. "Hawkins' team has reached the command center," Alara announced. "They're uploading the virus now." The effect was immediate. Zorn ships across the battlefield began to lose coordination, their weapons and shields failing. Lawrence allowed himself a moment of hope, but the Zorn were far from defeated. A swarm of Zorn fighters broke through their lines, pummeling several key Hirogen ships. The Concordia survivors, fighting alongside their Hirogen allies, found themselves cut off and surrounded. "We need reinforcements," Alara said, her voice tight with concern. As if in answer to her plea, a new fleet of ships dropped out of FTL on the edge of the battlefield. Lawrence's heart soared as he recognized the distinctive silhouettes of Hirogen warships. "This is Counselor Zorath," a familiar voice boomed over the comm. "The High Council sends its regards, and its finest warriors." With renewed vigor, the Human Hirogen Alliance pressed their advantage. Ilara's tactical brilliance, combined with the unexpected reinforcements, began to turn the tide of battle decisively in their favor. But victory was far from assured. On the Zorn flagship, Hawkins' team found themselves trapped, cut off from escape. Lawrence listened with growing dread as Hawkins outlined their desperate plan. "We're going to overload the flagship's power core," Hawkins said, his voice calm despite the gravity of his words. "It should take out a significant portion of the Zorn fleet. But, sir, we won't be able to make it out in time." Lawrence's mind raced, searching for alternatives. He locked eyes with Alara, seeing his own commitment reflected in her gaze. "Not if I have anything to say about it," Alara declared. She turned to a group of Hirogen warriors standing nearby. "Who's up for a rescue mission?" As Alara led her team towards the shuttle bay, Lawrence returned his attention to the battle. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, with the actions of a few brave individuals about to tip the scales. As he watched Alara's shuttle streak towards the Zorn flagship, Lawrence steeled himself for the crucial moments to come. "Come!" The shuttle's engines flared as it accelerated toward the massive Zorn flagship looming before them. Lawrence watched the tactical display, his heart pounding as Alara's shuttle wove through the chaos of battle. Explosions bloomed silently in the vacuum of space, casting eerie shadows across the bridge. He clenched his fist, willing the rescue mission to succeed. "Sir, Hawkins' team reports they've initiated the power core overload sequence," a communications officer called out. Lawrence nodded grimly. "Tell them to hold position. Reinforcements are inbound." On the Zorn flagship, Captain Hawkins and his team fought desperately against waves of alien defenders. The ship's corridors echoed with the shriek of energy weapons and the thunderous impacts of close-quarters combat. Hawkins ducked behind a twisted bulkhead, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to narrowly avoid a barrage of plasma bolts. "Status on that core overload?" he shouted over the din of battle. Private Chen, her fingers flying over an alien control panel, responded without looking up. Sequence initiated, but something's wrong. The ship's systems are destabilizing faster than expected. A violent tremor shook the deck beneath their feet. Sparks showered from ruptured conduits overhead, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the air. "Hold the line," Hawkins ordered, his voice carrying over the squad's comm channel. "Reinforcements are on the way." Alara's shuttle slammed into the Zorn flagship's docking bay, the impact jarring her teeth. She leapt from the craft before the ramp had fully deployed, her hydrogen warriors close behind. Their enhanced strength and speed, gifts from the mysterious radiation, gave them a crucial edge as they tore through the Zorn defenses. "Lawrence, we've breached the outer perimeter," Alara reported, her breath coming in short gasps as she sprinted down a winding corridor. "What's your position?" "2 decks below you," Lawrence's voice crackled through her comm. "We're pinned down near the main reactor control room. The ship's going haywire. Watch for malfunctioning security systems." As if to emphasize his point, a section of bulkhead suddenly slammed shut inches from Alara's face. She pirouetted gracefully, her enhanced agility allowing her to slip through the narrowing gap. Her hydrogen companions weren't far behind, their massive frames squeezing through with inhuman flexibility. "Understood," Alara replied. "We're on our way. Hold tight." In the vastness of space beyond, the battle raged with increasing intensity. Zorath's voice boomed across the command frequencies as he directed the Hirogen reinforcements. "Concentrate fire on the Zorn's portside defenses. Their shields are fluctuating." The virus uploaded by Lawrence's team spread through the enemy fleet like wildfire. Zorn ships veered wildly out of formation, their weapons systems firing erratically or not at all. The combined human hydrogen fleet pressed their advantage, methodically dismantling the once fearsome armada. Aboard the command ship, Dr. Chen stared at his monitors in growing alarm. The radiation exposure that had granted their forces such incredible abilities was now wreaking havoc on their physiology. Some crew members exhibited near-godlike powers, while others collapsed at their stations, racked with pain. "Commander," Chen's voice was tense as he addressed Lawrence over the comm. "The genetic changes are accelerating beyond our worst predictions. We need to get our people out of this radiation field as soon as possible, or the effects may become irreversible." Lawrence grimaced, acutely aware of the strange sensations coursing through his own body. He could feel his muscles coiling with unnatural strength, his mind racing faster than ever before. But there was no time to dwell on it now. "Understood, Doctor," he replied. "We'll wrap this up as quickly as we can. Stand by with medical teams for immediate treatment once we're clear." A thunderous explosion rocked the Zorn flagship, nearly throwing Lawrence off his feet. Hawkins steadied him, shouting to be heard over the ship's wailing alarms. "That was the primary coolant system. We've got minutes at most before this whole place goes up." Lawrence nodded, his enhanced mind already formulating escape routes. "Alara, what's your ETA?" "We're close," came the reply, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. "One more security checkpoint to breach. Hold on." Suddenly, the bulkhead at the far end of the corridor exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris strode Alara, her armor scorched and dented, but her eyes blazing with purpose. Behind her, a phalanx of Hirogen warriors engaged the remaining Zorn defenders in a furious melee. "Took you long enough," Lawrence quipped, unable to hide the relief in his voice. Ilara's antennae twitched in what might have been amusement. "You're welcome. Now let's get out of here before this ship becomes our tomb." The combined human hydrogen team fought their way back through the disintegrating flagship. Lawrence and Alara moved in perfect synchronization, covering each other's blind spots and anticipating threats before they materialized. Their shared experiences had forged a bond that transcended species, a living example of what their alliance could achieve. As they neared the extraction point, a massive tremor shook the ship. Hawkins, bringing up the rear, shouted a warning. "The reactor's going critical! Move, move, move!" They sprinted the final stretch, leaping over fallen debris and ducking under collapsing support beams. The docking bay was a scene of utter chaos, with fires raging unchecked and the artificial gravity fluctuating wildly. Their shuttle, miraculously still intact, stood as a beacon of hope amidst the destruction. "Everyone aboard now!" Lawrence ordered, ushering his team into the craft. He and Alara were the last to enter, sealing the hatch behind them just as another explosion rocked the dying Zorn vessel. The shuttle's engines roared to life, propelling them away from the flagship's hull. Through the viewports, they watched as the massive alien ship began to break apart, its structural integrity finally giving way. "All Allied ships, clear the blast radius immediately," Sorath's voice rang out over the comms. "Prepare for electromagnetic pulse." The Zorn flagship erupted in a blinding flash of light and energy. The resulting explosion sent a massive electromagnetic pulse cascading through space, catching the remaining enemy vessels in its wake. Shields failed, weapons went offline, and engines sputtered into silence. In the aftermath of the pulse, Lawrence's shuttle tumbled end over end, its systems temporarily overloaded. Warning klaxons blared as the craft drifted deeper into a nearby asteroid field. "Controls are unresponsive," Hawkins reported from the pilot's seat, his fingers dancing over dark consoles. "We're flying blind." Lawrence turned to Alara, seeing his own persistence mirrored in her eyes. "We're not done yet," he said firmly. "Everyone, pool your knowledge. We need to get this bird flying again before we become a permanent part of this asteroid field." As the shuttle drifted further into the dense cluster of space rocks, the survivors of Lawrence's team worked feverishly to restore power. Outside, the battle for the future of two civilizations raged on, its outcome hanging in the balance. But for the occupants of this small craft, adrift in the vastness of space, the most immediate challenge was simply to survive. Survive. Lawrence gripped the edge of his seat as the shuttle careened past another massive asteroid, missing it by mere meters. "Partial power restored to maneuvering thrusters," Chen called out, his fingers flying over a jury-rigged control panel. Hawkins seized the controls, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to navigate the treacherous field with uncanny precision. "Hold on, everyone. This is going to be close." The shuttle emerged from the asteroid field, battered but intact. As they approached the Allied fleet, Lawrence felt a wave of relief wash over him, but the feeling was short-lived as he noticed the strange sensations coursing through his body intensifying. "Commander," Dr. Chen's voice was tense as he studied a portable medical scanner. "The genetic changes are accelerating rapidly. We need to get everyone to a secure medical facility immediately." Lawrence nodded grimly, aware of the burning sensation in his muscles and the almost painful clarity of his thoughts. He glanced at Alara, noting the worried furrow of her brow and the subtle tremors in her antenna. As their shuttle docked with the Concordia, medical teams swarmed the hangar bay. Human and hydrogen doctors worked side by side, their movements a blur as they triaged the returning crew members. "This way, Commander." A hydrogen medic guided Lawrence towards a makeshift quarantine area. "We need to stabilize your condition before—" The medic's words were cut short as Lawrence's legs gave out beneath him. He collapsed to the deck, his vision swimming with strange fractal patterns. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Alara reaching out for him, her own form seeming to shimmer and change before his eyes. Lawrence awoke to the steady beep of medical monitors and the low hum of sophisticated equipment. He blinked, his enhanced vision adjusting quickly to the dim light of the recovery ward. Beside him, Alara lay on a similar bed, her chest rising and falling with steady breaths. "Ah, you're awake," Dr. Chen's voice came from the foot of the bed. The scientist looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes betraying long hours of work. "How do you feel, Commander?" Lawrence took a moment to assess his condition. The burning sensation had faded, replaced by a strange sense of power thrumming just beneath his skin. "Different," he finally answered. "What happened?" Chen's expression was a mix of excitement and concern. "The genetic changes reached a critical point. We were able to stabilize your condition, but, well, perhaps it's better if I show you." He handed Lawrence a mirror. The face that stared back was both familiar and alien. His eyes now held a hint of the multifaceted complexity of Hirijan vision, while his skin had taken on a subtle, iridescent quality. "The radiation exposure has led to a unique hybridization of human and Hirijan DNA," Chen explained. "You, Alara, and many others affected by the exposure now possess traits of both species." Before Lawrence could fully process this information, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Zorath's voice boomed over the intercom. "All hands to battle stations. Zorn forces detected on long-range scanners." Despite Chen's protests, Lawrence swung his legs over the side of the bed. He was surprised by the fluid grace of his movements, his hybrid body responding with incredible precision. Beside him, Ilara was already on her feet, her antennae twitching with heightened awareness. "We need to get to the bridge," Lawrence said, his enhanced mind already formulating strategies. As they raced through the corridors, Lawrence marveled at the changes in his perception. He could sense the subtle vibrations of the ship's engines, hear the whispered conversations of crew members behind closed doors. Ilara kept pace easily, her own hybrid form moving with inhuman agility. They burst onto the bridge just as the first wave of Zorn ships appeared on the main view screen. Zorath turned to them, his eyes widening slightly at their altered appearance before focusing on the tactical situation. "The Zorn have regrouped faster than we anticipated," the Hirogen counselor growled. "They're making a final desperate push." Lawrence stepped up to the tactical display, his hybrid mind processing the information at an astonishing rate. "They're concentrating their forces here." He indicated a sector of space near a dense nebula. "If we can draw them into the nebula, we can use its electromagnetic properties to our advantage." Ilara nodded, her antennae twitching as she added her own enhanced perception to the analysis. "We can position our ships here and here," she pointed to key locations. "The nebula will mask our energy signatures, allowing us to ambush their main force." Zorath studied the plan for a moment before nodding approvingly. "Impressive. It seems your changes have their benefits. Very well, let's end this threat once and for all." As the Allied fleet moved into position, Lawrence couldn't help but reflect on the strange turn of events that had led to this moment. From that first shocking encounter in the medical bay, to now standing side by side as hybrid beings, he and Ilara had come further than he could have ever imagined. The Zorn fleet entered the nebula, their ship's energy signatures fluctuating wildly in the charged gases. Lawrence gave the signal, and the Allied forces sprang their trap. Human, Hirogen, and hybrid crew members worked in perfect harmony, their enhanced abilities allowing them to outmaneuver and outfight the Zorn at every turn. As the last Zorn ship fell to their combined firepower, a cheer went up across the Allied fleet. The threat that had brought their species together was finally defeated. But as the adrenaline of battle faded, Lawrence knew that their greatest challenges and opportunities still lay ahead. In the days that followed, as the Allied leadership grappled with the implications of the hybrid population, Lawrence and Ilara found themselves at the center of intense scrutiny and debate. Their unique status as successful hybrids made them both subjects of scientific fascination and symbols of a possible shared future. "We need to address this situation head-on," Lawrence said as he and Ilara prepared for a crucial meeting with the combined councils of Earth and Zarax Prime. "The hybridization process is irreversible, but it also presents unprecedented opportunities for both our species." Ilara nodded, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with perseverance. "We've come too far to turn back now. It's time to forge a new path forward, together." As they entered the council chambers, Lawrence felt the weight of history on his shoulders. The decisions made here would shape the future of both humanity and the Hirogen for generations to come. He exchanged a glance with Ilara, drawing strength from their shared experiences and the bond that had grown between them. "Members of the council," Lawrence began, his hybrid voice carrying easily through the large room. "We stand at a crossroads. The threat of the Zorn has been neutralized, but we now face a new challenge and a new opportunity. The hybridization process that Ilara, myself, and many others have undergone represents a unique merger of our two species. We propose the establishment of a new colony world where humans, Hirogen, and hybrids can live and work together, building a shared culture that draws on the strengths of both our peoples." A murmur rippled through the assembled counselors. Some nodded in agreement, while others frowned in concern. As the debate began in earnest, Lawrence and Ilara stood firm, ready to advocate for a future that neither of them could have imagined when they first met in that medical bay, but one they now believed in with every fiber of their hybrid beings.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.